Welcome back to No Better Argument. So it has been a bit since I last posted a video. I do apologize about that, but I'm pumped to be back. Today we're looking at the NFL draft. Now it takes place tomorrow. I'm obsessed with the whole draft, whether it's this or the NBA. I think the whole event itself is so cool. So I'm pretty excited to jump into this video today. Now you can find mock drafts wherever, you just takes one Google search and it's all over the internet. Plenty of videos about it on YouTube, so I won't do that. I'll be looking at 5 teams that I'm interested in, 5 teams to watch out for. So let's get started. So starting off at number 1 is the San Francisco 49ers. So they hold the 3rd pick in the draft, and this is where things really heat up. So apparently Lawrence to the Jags at 1 and Wilson to the Jets at 2 has been a lock for months. So things really get interesting when the San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. Now, there's been reports from the media that there's been internal disagreement. So Shanahan wants Mac Jones, and then the personnel/scouting department, they don't want Mac Jones. They want either Trey Lance or Justin Fields. So Shanahan wants Mac Jones because his 2 best qualities are pass accuracy and decision making. That's all Shanahan needs in his offense. Those 2 things, and for the most part, it's sweet. He hasn't been able to get that out of Jimmy G, so that's why his main focus is drafting Mac Jones. But Mac Jones doesn't have the upside that, Lance and Justin Fields has. So that's something they do need to work through. I think there's potential that Lance, he is raw, but he's super talented. He's a dual threat QB. He could be one of the best guys to come out of this draft alongside a Justin Fields. So there's definitely some heated debate internally that's been reported. And I think Mac Jones is the one they draft. It's hard to overrule Kyle Shanahan. It seems as though it's his show that he's running. He's proven that for the most part, his system, his style of play does translate to winning as long as the QB is reliable. If you want to go back to a reliable QB, you can go back to his days where he was offensive coordinator for Atlanta, where they went to the Super Bowl. They obviously blew the 28-3 lead, but that was Kyle Shanahan's offense that Matt Ryan thrived in. So if they can get something similar, and if Mac Jones can pan out to be Matt Ryan, which is probably a best case scenario for the comparables between those two, then the Niners would be sweet. But if Mac Jones isn't good and Trey Lance and Justin Fields turns out to be better, you could potentially start to question how safe Shanahan's job is. So it is a big draft. I think they do end up taking Mac Jones, and then the draft really kicks off. The second team I want to talk about is the Cincinnati Bengals. So they draft in the 5th overall spot. There's been a lot of debate at who they take here. Do they take an O-lineman who, will obviously help Joe Burrow, give him better protection, give him more time in the pocket, means he won't have to scramble as much like he did last season before tearing his ACL. So there's a couple of guys, whether you want Rashawn Slater, who from Northwestern, very good O-lineman, but opted out from last season due to COVID. Or then you have Penei Sewell from Oregon, who's also good. But there's been debate. I don't think there's a clear 1 or 2 between those guys. It seems to be chopping and changing between a lot of different draft analysts. So there's no clear one out of those guys, which I think would go a long way towards, deciding which player Cincinnati would take. If Sewell was the clear number 1 or Slater was the clear number 1, I think they would probably look at that, but the fact that there's no clear standout means they'll probably look at a wide receiver that is a clear standout, and that's Jamar Chase. So he opted out of the last season due to COVID as well. Quite a few players that have done that in this year's draft, which, definitely makes things interesting because there's just so much unknown about this year's draft class due to the whole COVID situation, as well as, those that opted out and didn't play. So Jamar Chase, if there's one thing we know, he's a game changer. He's built like a ton of bricks. He's 6 foot, can do everything you'd want out of a wide receiver, and is definitely a true number 1. He does have the LSU connection with Burrow. They played in Joe's last season. Their combination was lethal, destroyed oppositions on their way to winning the college championship. So I think Burrow's say in wanting Jamar Chase in Cincinnati will go a long way towards them deciding to take Chase. But I do think that, there is some pretty valid debate between, playing the smart route and getting an O-lineman. But I think you can find a decent O-lineman in the 2nd or 3rd round, but it is hard to find another Jamar Chase. So that's what I think they end up doing in Cincinnati, and Burrow is reunited with Jamar. The New England Patriots. Now, we saw in free agency, everyone was shocked. They went out and signed a ton of guys on day one, paying premium price, giving top dollar to a lot of different guys. And that was a clear statement that they want to be good this season. They're no longer messing around. I know Belichick probably is a competitive guy. So we saw Tom Brady winning that Super Bowl with Tampa and just thought, enough's enough. It was clear from last season, the Patriots, that Cam Newton, I don't think, is the guy. It was a bit of a nice redemption story being out of the league and him coming back, but it was pretty obvious he doesn't have the arm strength. So I know New England has been a team that hasn't traded up in the past, but I think if Justin Fields or Trey Lance is there in the back end of the top 10, that New England pull the trigger on moving up from 15. I think they continue on the theme from free agency that they're going to be aggressive, they're going to put their best foot forward, and they'll potentially, along with another team that I'll mention next, are going to be the ones that will be the most active on the draft day in terms of trades and movement. The fourth team I want to discuss is the Denver Broncos. Now, they are in a similar boat to the Patriots. They are potentially a team that could trade up for a QB. Now, they did just acquire Teddy Bridgewater, but I don't think this rules them out of still looking to trade up or draft a QB at the position they're at if there's a guy that's available that they like. Anyone who watched Denver last year would know that they're actually a really quality team. They're well balanced on both sides of the ball, and they were super competitive. Now, they were involved in 10 one-score games last season, and their record was 4-6 in those 10 games. So even if you flip that around and they have a 6-4 record instead of a 4-6, they probably make the playoffs. And as we know, anything can happen once you're in the playoffs. So the clear area that they need to improve is the QB spot. Drew Lock is unreliable, but who knows what his ceiling is. Bridgewater is reliable, but he doesn't have a very high ceiling. So I don't think they should be ruling out taking another QB if, there is someone there that really tickles their fancy. I think at the end of the day, they probably just hold pat with where they are and they don't look to trade up. If there is a QB available at 9, I think they will look to take one, but I just think they take the best player available if the QBs that they're interested in are gone. So that's Denver's situation. Watch out for them. They could be a real threat this year. So the fifth and final team I want to discuss is my Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, we couldn't go a video without discussing something near and dear to my heart. So the Bird Gang, we did have the 6th pick, but we traded back to the 12th with the Dolphins. I was pissed about it at the time, but I do have a little bit more understanding about that, picking up an extra first rounder for next year's draft, which is meant to be a loaded one. And we potentially could still get a really good player at 12 in this year. So the three areas we do need to address out of many, but I think the three that are priorities are linebacker, cornerback, wide receiver. So with wide receivers, it's looking like a sure thing that Jamar Chase and Waddle won't be available at 12, so that only leaves Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith's the beast. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. I'd love to get him. Giants picked before us at 11. I'm praying to God that Dave Gettleman and that franchise don't break my heart and take him. It was pretty disastrous last year when we took Rager at 21, and then behind us at 22, the Vikings took Justin Jefferson, who was an absolute animal for them last year. So I don't want another story like that. I think if Smith's there, we've got to look at taking him. The biggest question is Jalen Hurts our QB of the future? Is he our QB1? And the only way you can answer that question is by surrounding him with as much talent as possible and figuring out if he's the guy or not. So if Smith's there, I think we've got to take him. But if not, we'll probably just look to take the best defensive player available, whether that be the linebacker Micah Parsons out of Penn State. His main asset and elite skill is rushing the QB. He's not that good in pass protection, but I think the fact he is so good at pressuring the QB is what a lot of GMs like in him. Then you have a couple of cornerbacks that we can look at as well to pair up with Darius Slay, be it Surtain out of Alabama or JC Horn out of South Carolina. So there's a couple of options with that position, but I think it comes back to I badly want a quality wide receiver. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys took CD Lamb last year as a wide out to add to their stud list. And, being NFC East rivals, I want Philly to have a stud wide receiver as well to really match up and go against him. So I'd love Smith, but I'm not holding my breath. I've been disappointed by the Eagles draft picks in the past, so we'll just have to pray and hope that it falls my way tomorrow. Well, that wraps things up for this NFL draft preview. Looking forward to seeing how it all pans out tomorrow. Expect plenty more content on this channel moving forward as we head into the NBA playoffs and as the NFL season kicks off. I also do a podcast weekly with Darcy Emery, the DC pod. We have some great conversations there. Darcy's a super knowledgeable guy and we cover all things basketball. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you head over to that. Otherwise, this No Bad Argument channel moving forward, I'll be looking to kind of fill in the gaps with what's not discussed with Darcy. I'll make sure that's put into this channel. So as always, if you can like and subscribe, that means a lot. And I'll speak to you guys very soon.